Dumelang Sambanani, hello South Africa, a very warm welcome to Expressions. This is definitely the place for you to air your views. I'm your host, Jacqueline Mapala.
And I'm your host, Mqolisi Masango. Now that we have the results of the 2021 local government elections, what impact do these results have on our youth? Now, the ANC is below 50% in terms of the electoral support since its ascendance to power some 27 years ago. Godoge, what does this mean for Ulushalala Mzansi, considering the fact that new parties such as Action SA have done so well?
Yes, Mqo, and that's a very important question. And of course, what is the role of independent candidates in championing the issues facing young people, especially when we're considering this new political dispensation of coalition party politics, Mqo?
Senjalo Jackie, before we get into that discussion, let's quickly take a look at this insert that gives us a summary of the results of the local government elections.
Only 12.1 million voters cast their ballot out of the 26 million registered voters in the 2021 local government elections. This sees voter turnout dip below the 50% mark from the 58% recorded in the 2016 municipal elections. Concerns have been raised as to why South Africans are showing little interest in exercising their democratic right.
It is important to realize that voter turnout is a multifaceted phenomenon influenced by different factors. Some of the elements that motivate voters to go relate to matters outside of the purview of the Commission, such as disruptions to services, level of trust, and the level of trust in political institutions.
Earlier this year, international marketing firm Ipsos predicted a further decrease in voter turnout.
We are concerned on two fronts. One is that it is low. Secondly, that the youth vote didn't turn out as much as many of us, and I've spoken to other political parties as well, had expected.
No politicians go to jail for stealing money. There are no consequences. Even when we do manage to get them in jail, they're given medical parole and they're out. So I think South Africans have got really tired of lack of consequences in South Africa for wrongdoing, and I think they've expressed their dissatisfaction there.
We know for a fact that EFF voters, they went to the ballot. The ones that managed to speak to, they went to vote, and the results will come as the day goes. So we're not panicking. We're not dealing with the issues of what happened in terms of postponement. We'll pass that stage.
Ntlanhla Kgatlane, SABC News, Johannesburg.
And that was the summary of the results for the local government elections. And of course, to help me unpack this very important conversation that we're having today in studio is Usiza Tiane, who is an ANC councillor-elect for Ward 67 in Mamelodi West. Sizwe, a very warm welcome to Expressions.
Thank you for having us. It's an honor.
No, it's good to have you here on the show. I mean, obviously, this is the post-mortem, the aftermath of the local government elections for 2021. And I think I want to start this conversation just going straight into the poll question that we're asking, young people, and that is, what is the impact of the local government elections on issues affecting young people?
I think maybe let's start by analyzing the results themselves, the turnout. It's amongst young people that they've not registered to vote. Majority of them did not go to the polls because young people have generally lost hope in the government and the systems that government put in place to assist them in their growth. But maybe to also emphasize that government is not doing enough to really champion the interests of students. I mean, we talk about access to basic education. We talk about your basic education in itself, your infrastructure there. You can't expect young people who must go to school hungry, who must go to school without having proper uniform to concentrate and be expected to perform at the level of which children from public schools perform. You talk about access to higher education itself. We are producing young people who can participate actively in the economy of South Africa. We're not having enough initiatives to enhance sporting codes of South Africa amongst young people. Young people generally do not know what to do because there isn't enough consideration as to also young people occupying spaces of leadership, because I feel also as a young person now who's 28 years of age, who will be serving in council, the responsibility that I feel and witness every day when you interact with our peers is immense because they are inspired. But now what are we doing to make sure that we build the future, because that's where the future of South Africa is.
Young people are watching Expressions right now,
yes.
and you know,
yeah.
27 years in power. It's the same story. Are you, as the ruling party, ever going to change?
From where I am sitting, which is why we have taken the initiative to say young people must take over. Young people must rise. They must fight for their space. Because obviously, for 27 years, we've not been considered significantly in the politics and the economic scale of South Africa. So it is up to us, honestly, to rise and occupy the space of leadership. It is up to us to rise and go to school. It is up to us to rise and be academically conscious, so that even when we demand some of these things and we get the opportunity to serve in these platforms, we go there and do what we need to do and represent the views of our peers, because there's no better person to represent views of young people than young people themselves. So it's time now that we take politics seriously. It's time that we take our environmental issues and the general economic scale of our country seriously, to a point where we see that we are not being taken seriously. It is us that must push the old and say, but now it's our time. We need to occupy the space. We need to represent our voices and the voices of our peers.
What does it mean when, you know, so many people don't show up to vote?
No, for us, what we take out of this, especially me being probably the youngest person in the Council of Tshwane, is the fact that we need to realize, even from the books of history, that it is young people that has always stood up and changed the political landscapes of their country. And even in this time, it is young people that must rise themselves to occupy the spaces and make sure that they fight for their spaces, they fight for the future, their future and the future of our children, by the way. Because where we are sitting, Tina, we're saying that the government of the day have reached a ceiling. You are correct to say so much have been lost. They fought, but they fought to a certain point where we must take the baton, and sometimes when we're not given this baton, we're going to be shoving them, because we're suffocating where we are. We must fight harder than young people who are in more privileged, to say the least, to occupy space, at least to go to school, at least to be able, because some of us are even leading households. We are leading child-headed households. We get teenage pregnancy. We are victims of drug and alcohol abuse because we've lost hope, because we don't see an alternative, we don't see hope. So it is us that must rise and be the hope that young people want to see, to motivate them, to encourage them to say, let's go to school, let's clean our environment, let's be also play our role and say the future that we demand is the future that we're honestly ready for.
What future does coalition governance hold for young people in this country, considering the fact that no one wants to enter into any type of marriage with the ANC?
Yes, and for me, we should take that as a mandate, not only from the ruling parties or the opposition, to correct my statement, but from the voters themselves. Voters are saying, we don't have confidence in you. We don't have trust in you. So I am saying, from where I'm sitting, which might not be popular, is to say that let's continue sitting in the opposition benches. Let's go back to our ground. Let's retain and fight for the trust that we've lost. Let's do what we are supposed to do. Clean governance, work for the people, regain the trust from the people. The people will, when they are fine with us, they will put us back into power. I don't believe that we must be desperate at this point to cling on to power. But what we should be focusing and being desperate and obsessed about is how we're going to be empowering our people on the ground, how we're going to be interacting with our people, how we're going to be in our communities and building better lives together.
It's up to you to really decide as a young person. Do you really feel that, you know, the impact on you as a young person in terms of these local government elections are going to be positive for you? We've heard the story, over and over and over. Do you believe Sizwe? I don't know. It's definitely up to you. Actions definitely speak louder than words. We'll be back right after this. You're still watching Expressions.
You're still watching Expressions, your #1 youth current affairs show. At the back of the local government elections, Muntomosha, we still continue to have conversations around the elections and how they affect you, Lapikaya, as Muntomosha. Siyabuza, what is the impact of the local government elections on issues that affect you as a young person? And of course, joining me now on the line is Zukia Betswe Malebo, who ran as an independent candidate, just to, have a conversation, Nati, as well as SABC specialist researcher Maswele Ralibona. It's great to have you gentlemen on the show. Ngelubuza Putwami, what is it that sparked that need for you to run as an independent candidate?
So what sparked the whole idea was that some of us are very passionate about community development within society. So with everything that we're doing, we're trying to make sure that we build ikasle to Tina as the youth. So what sparked it is the whole idea of uplifting ikasi outside politics. So that's what sparked this whole idea for me to actually want to get into this whole political space, because of the resources that I need in the political space. So the whole idea is what sparked like development us wanting to make sure that we push as best as we can and we uplift the community, making sure that basic needs are being met. We push for accelerated service delivery. We make sure that we uplift youth from an early age. We make sure we as the youth, we want to make sure with the schools that are within the community, how can we develop them? How can we push that we are not laid back in terms of our education system, and kids are more inspired to go to school instead of being relentless to go to school. So we have a lot of issues that political structures seem to bypass. But because of Tina Singabashali, we know the problems within the community. And as Umshali, this is why I decided to raise my hand and want to go as an independent candidate.
What do you think of this move by young people, seeing that you decided to do something about changing the situation in Pagatin Wangagin?
Listen, so I honestly feel like Rome was not built in a day, my brother. The system created all of this. Mina, I'm not going to lie. I was greatly affected by the youth not voting. Even though we came fourth place with 850 votes, in 2 months of campaigning. So for me, I feel that is strong, as compared to Umuntu, or as compared to the ruling party that has power, that has had ruling power over 27 years. But Rome, as I mentioned, Rome was not built in a day. We were greatly affected, which means now we need to go back in the community and we need to, ignite that fire and that energy to take people to voting polls, because they don't understand the impact of them not voting because of their disgruntled. And we don't blame them, because of this is what the system has created. Lack of opportunities. When we ask them, why don't you go vote? They'll always tell us that we're not voting because there are not opportunities. So why should I vote, making the ANC or the ruling party being in power, whereas China as benefiting? So with this being said, we need to go back to the drawing board, and we need to make sure that we ignite that fire within the youth, and we make them see the importance of voting within society. Which, if you don't vote, you must make you are going to suffer.
I think it's at this point that we need to also bring in Maswele Ralibona, who's our specialist researcher here at the SABC. Maswele, this is what so many weeks of analysis and really laying a foundation to the local government elections has come down to. This is at a point now we are essentially doing a post-mortem. SA has decided, and it shows in the results that we have seen. Any surprises from what has come out thus far in terms of the numbers?
Thank you, Mkolisi. Let me say that the results as they are, as disappointing as they are in terms of voter participation, they also reflect the feeling on the ground by voters. Take, for example, on the day of the elections, the voter turnout was less than 50%, which means less than half of of 26.2 million registered voters only managed to go and vote. This alone, it's a vote of no confidence to the ruling party, because over the years, many of those who were voting for the ANC, and the ANC was coming out tops, over 60%, 60% plus. But recently, since 2016, we have seen the numbers going down, the voter turnout going down. The ANC, even though they lost the elections, they didn't expect that they will lose the election through a lack of voter turnout. Because those who didn't go to vote will tell you, like Kiarezi was saying, that they say, we're not going to vote because the ANC has disappointed us. We've been voting since 1994. We haven't received anything tangible from this new democracy. So the ANC lost in the ballot, and it also lost the confidence of the voters. It lost on the ground. It lost everywhere else. As we speak now, we are sitting with the ANC that is dominant in the rural areas and suffering big time, being forced to go and negotiate with other parties in the urban areas. Let's take, for example, in Gauteng alone, the ANC will have to negotiate with other parties in order to take control of the municipalities, of which we don't know whether those other parties will give it to the ANC or they will choose to work together. This was disappointing for the ANC. This was disappointing for the democracy of the country, and this was disappointing for the IEC.
You know, Maswele, you've just led me directly to my next talking point. I mean, when the EFF wanted Tshwane at some point, the ANC refused on the basis that, you know, they said that it would significantly weaken the proposed EFF government, and of course, then talks collapsed to a certain level, and this subsequently led to some diabolical coalitions back in 2016. Are we likely to see some of that happening this year, or you think it's just going to be smooth trying to clinch those coalitions?
It's difficult to call what the coalition government would look like, given that when we were there at the IEC Center this past week, we saw and we listened to all political parties that will be going to those negotiation tables, pronouncing their wish lists, others saying, I'm not going to coalition with this one. Take, for example, the new kid in the block, Action SA, here in Johannesburg, Pretoria, Ekurhuleni. They've already mentioned, Mashaba has already mentioned that he's not, by any chance, going to coalition with the ANC. And on the other side, you've got the DA, which is an opposition together with the EFF, which we all know that the policies of the EFF, the policies of the DA are water and oil. The EFF wants land want to grab land without compensation, whereas on the other side, the DA is saying the status must remain. So we are going to see a marathon of activities leading to the next 14 days.
Maswele Ralibona is the SABC specialist researcher joining us there on the line. Thank you so much for your time, as well as Ukiabetu Malebo, who ran as an independent candidate. Now, before we go to ad break, just a quick tweet. ANC will never smell 50% again, ever in the city of Joburg, possibly nationally as well. And I'm proud to be part of those people who made this decision as a young person. Hashtag LGE 2021. Well, Expressions continues at the back of this. Stay with us.
Welcome back. You're still watching Expressions, your #1 youth current affairs show. Today we are actually going into the post-mortem of the local government elections for 2021. And the whole question that we're asking you, Kochai, as a young person is, what is the impact of the local government elections on issues affecting you as a young person? And of course, we're wrapping up this part of our segment. And I think, Sizwe, let's specifically talk about, how did you perform in your ward? Are you going into any coalition government whatsoever?
Yeah, no, thanks. Maybe let me start by saying we are a ward of 17,000 registered voters. And in that, the turnout was plus or minus 8,000. And plus or minus 4.5 voted for the ANC, and me, myself, as the councillor candidate. So that is a significant number, but we must also acknowledge that out of the 17,000, 80% of the remainder after the 8,000 that did not turn out to vote are young people. So that is why it brings us back to the issue of saying, which is why we join politics in the first instance, of championing the interests of young people. And by so saying, we speak about infrastructure development in schools. We speak about skills development amongst young people, especially dropouts. And by skills development, we also go to an extent of talking about agricultural development and food security. We must plant. Our schools have space of planting. Young people must be taught how to be mechanics. Young people must be taught how to be civil engineers. Generally, young people must participate in every opportunity that we bring, especially with academics, and also to participate in the activism, not only with the ANC, but generally young people must just be proactive in society.
You know, and obviously as the winning political party within Ward 67, Mamelodi West, and obviously as the councillor-elect in that particular space, how are you going to restore the confidence of all the young people who did not participate in this electoral process?
It's as simple as me going to the ground and organizing young people in different aspects. We must help young people to register businesses. We must help young people to apply to institutions of higher learning. We must assist them in getting bursaries. We must assist them in getting information so that they feel part of the government. That is why they feel that they are not part of it. That's why they don't see a difference in their vote, which is, by the way, disappointing, because we need to be standing up. This right to vote was died for. There are people who laid their lives for this right to vote, to voice out. If you're not happy with the ANC, then you must be expressing your view to say, what do you want? Express your change in the ballot. But we're saying that is only going to happen when we stand up. We rise. We need to rise. We need to speak truth to power. Young people must accept the reality that it is their future that we must fight for. Because also, to also emphasize a point is that we are the ones who are carrying a campaign of the African National Congress. On the ground, it has been young people speaking to the elderly, speaking to our peers, which was very difficult. So that should tell us about the potential power that we have to fight for our space.
And just simply for all the young people who are watching you right now, I mean, obviously you're going to be a councillor. Should they expect change come 2024? Will they be seeing a different type of an ANC? Yes,
that is what we are also calling on them to come and join us in hands to fight for. We need to be able to be the change we want to see.
Excellent. Well, perfect. Short and sweet. Thank you so much. And that's Caesar Chiane, who is the ANC councillor-elect for Ward 67 in Mamelodi West. All the best. We'll be watching you, as Expressions.
Please do. Please
We're going to hold you accountable.
That is exactly what we want.
Right?
Yes.
Nko, I'm going to just throw this back to you. Obviously, we've come to the end of our show. Shucks, so much insight from today's show. So much to think about for young people, especially in terms of the impact that these local government elections are going to be making on their lives moving forward.
Yep, absolutely, Jackie. Thank you so much for that. And of course, thank you so much, Nawe Lapakaya, for watching the show today. And we appreciate all your participation in Nkundleni Zethu Zokuxhumana. We see the tweets also coming in thick and fast. So thank you for joining us on today's edition of Expressions. From all of us here on the show, we wish you a spectacular afternoon going forward. And Sale kahle.